Hello and welcome to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your host, Steve.
And in this podcast, we're going to explore the reality of living life as an expat in Australia and what it really means to feel like you belong.
Join us as we uncover the challenges and opportunities that expat life presents on the search for settled.
With our stories, tips and interviews, see us as your two friends to help you navigate expat life abroad. Just to let you know, this video podcast series is brought to you by the team at Auric Migration and Mobility. Now, Auric have helped us personally with my visa process to Australia, and we only know too well how difficult the entire process can be if you're doing it by yourself. They have also helped hundreds of our followers, and they're offering our listeners an initial assessment for free. Email them your visa situation, questions or concerns, and they will get back to you at no extra cost. Simply mention the Expat Reality Podcast when you email them at migration@auric.com. Auric is spelled A-U-R-E-C. So that's migration@auric.com. Welcome back to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your co-host, Steve.
And we have a really special episode today, everybody, because we had... Do you want to do a drum roll, Steve?
I'll do a little drum roll. Are you ready?
Go. We've got the one, the only Jordana Grace from That British Girl joining us today, everybody.
Ew. All right.
Welcome, Jordana.
Thank you very much for having me. This is so amazing to be here. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you didn't know, Jordana is a viral social media star who creates comedy videos about things they should tell you before coming to Australia. Her videos have become so big, it's actually not a rarity that her face pops up on various other accounts on my social media channels almost every single day. Her TikTok has seen over 9 million likes and over 266,000 followers. Some of her Instagram reels have seen over 10 million views each, which is insane when you think about it.
Wow, that is a pretty impressive role, I think. Jordana, please, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the audience and tell us how you ended up moving to Australia?
Well, yes, thank you very much. Okay, so I am Jordana Grace, known as That British Girl, because basically I just started creating videos on things they should tell you before coming to Australia, because I got trapped in Australia during COVID and I was just noticing all these differences. And then I ended up getting recognized a few times and people just point like, are you that British girl? And that's how the name was born. They're like, oh, yeah. It was completely random. I never expected to do this. I didn't really even know much about social media, but I am actually half Australian. My dad's Australian, my mum's English. We lived in Australia. I was born here till I was 3, but then they divorced. So I've lived my entire life basically in the UK, but have gone back and forth to Australia for holidays, sometimes in school. And then I was working in TV in London, felt very burnt out. So I was like, I'm going to come to Australia for a holiday. And this is February 2020. And I get stuck here for COVID and I managed to stay with family and it's wonderful. And then I just started creating these videos, and I think I was at church one day, came back, got into bed, and then my friend texted me like, you're in the news. I was like, what? What? And I did a video on Kmart and how much people love it in Australia, and it just went viral. And my mum called me. She's like, darling, you're above Trump in the news. Okay.
That's the place to be.
Yeah, so it's just kicked off since then. It's been amazing.
Wow,
that's impressive.
You know how much I love Kmart, don't you, Steve?
Annie's got a bit of a thing for Kmart, so she's crazy about it.
Well, he doesn't, but I do. I think Kmart is like an amazing shop that everywhere should have one. Personally,
the whole world should be Kmart. Kmartified.
Yeah, my sister landed in the my sister moved to Australia. The first day, I was like, we have to go to Kmart. I just have to. No wilderness, no anything. Kmart.
You get a cab straight from the airport, straight to Kmart, nearest one. Go straight to the home section.
And that's what I was just about to say. What's your favourite section in Kmart?
I think when you go to Kmart, it tells you what you need, and you just wander the aisles. But the home section is the best. It is the best.
Absolutely. I quite like the sportswear section. It's not bad.
Yeah,
No,
got its
cheap
thing. It
sportswear,
does its
why
thing.
not?
Yeah.
You never know what's in
not?
Kmart.
So you've been here now for 3 years and you've recently just come back from holiday to the UK. And how was that now, like coming back to Australia? Do you feel like you miss England now? Or are you like, no, I'm definitely an Australian and I'm going to stay forever? Or...
Well, to be honest, when I came over here, I only came over for a month. All my stuff in the UK was in storage, and I didn't really say goodbye to anyone because I wasn't planning on staying in Australia. So I went. It was so wonderful to see family and friends, and there was massive tears because I missed them so much. But whilst I love being back there and seeing little pockets of England and why I love Europe, I felt in my heart, I was like, but Australia's my home now. I love my lifestyle here. I love that I'm outdoors nearly every day. I know I'm always bitten by mosquitoes, but it just I felt a lot of peace that Australia is my home. And 3 years ago, I would never have guessed I lived in Australia, but because of COVID and then being stuck here, then having to apply for jobs, and moving to the Sunshine Coast because my family in Brisbane, I could have predicted none of it, but it has been incredible.
Wow. And funnily enough, we're on the Sunshine Coast too. So we're not actually that far from each other.
We're very, very, very close. And the Sunshine Coast is amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So just to explain a little bit more about coming back and forth to Australia, like growing up as a kid. So you said that you went to school a little bit over here. So what was that experience like going between UK and Australian schools? It must have been such a weird sort of moment in time.
It was very bizarre because I would spend 6 months in primary school in England and then like 6 months in Australia. And I remember just getting to Australia and being like, why is no one wearing shoes? And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, a caterpillar. And I picked it up and all these kids were like, oh no, don't do it. I was like, oh, but it's so cute and fluffy. And then within hours, I had this massive rash up my arm. And they're just like, oh, you can tell who the foreign one is.
What was
it? Was like caterpillars. I don't know. Like everything's poisonous. Just everything. Don't touch it. And half my childhood was my dad just slapping things out my hand, like frog, poisonous, dangerous. This dangerous. Like, when I went back, that was the one thing when I was back in the UK. I'd go for a walk and be like, nothing can kill me on this walk. There's nothing deadly like snakes or any animal that would attack me. Whereas over here, it's just like could be anything. But I still love it.
Is there anything else that you noticed when you went back that you really missed where you're like, oh my God, I forgot about like M&S or, anything like that?
I think cups of tea are just better in the UK, 100%. I don't know if it's water in Australia, but you can't make a good cup of tea here. The coffee's so much better in Australia. But tea in the UK is amazing. I miss being able to walk places, walk to shops.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I noticed coming to Australia is that in England, our house is so much more compact. Will have the washing machine in the kitchen and it's just normal or in the bathroom. And I came over here, I was like, you have a laundry room? You guys are like living like kings. And everyone's like, this is so normal, Jord. I'm like, no, don't get it. We bring our dirty socks and pants to the kitchen and it's just normal.
Because you can multitask, can't you? Like you can get the two things done. You can wash the dishes and your clothes at the same time. It kind of makes sense.
Kind of does. I always thought it was kind of weird, really, seeing a laundry room over here.
Yeah.
But because Steve lived in the UK for a couple of years before we met. And you thought it was kind of weird though, didn't you, seeing a washing machine in the kitchen? Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was totally bizarre. I'm like, hang on, is there a problem here? Like, do you guys not have a laundry that you can put this in? Or I feel kind of sorry for you a little bit maybe. Like, is there a problem here? And it's like, no, this is how it's normally done. Like, what are you talking about a laundry? What's this all about? Anyway, and this is how the whole thing kind of kicked off and my mind was blown at that point.
You know what else? Like, I remember about the UK as well. This is not everywhere, but in some houses, you have to walk through the kitchen to go into the bathroom to like have a shower or something.
Okay, yeah.
And then having to like walk out with your towel and you're like, ooh, like, if you've got housemates or whatever.
Strange room setups.
Yeah, very strange.
They're just cuter and more compact in the UK, but that means that we can drive anywhere in 45 minutes. And before moving to Australia, like I lived in Swindon and I'd be like, I've got to go to Bristol. It's a 45-minute drive. I'm going to have to feed the cat like 2 bowls of food. I'm going to have to turn off everything at the wall, unplug the fridge. It's just this mission and like pack snacks for the day. Whereas in Australia, you're just like, do you want to get a donut? It's only a 3-hour drive. It's just down the road. And that's a mental shift. I was like, our 3-hour drive is nothing. But in the UK, you will be on the other side of the UK.
Yeah, it's so funny. Actually, I saw an Instagram this morning, and these people, they went from Brisbane to Maryborough, which is 3-hour drive, like north of Brisbane, to go and see Australia's most beautiful public toilet.
Yes, I saw that.
What would
Did
you
you see
really?
that? I heard about that before, but I'd never seen it. And I was like, we have to go and see
Hang
it.
on, is it like code name for something? Is that like, does that
No,
mean
it's like
something
this-
else?
It's
or?
all like
Hand
it's like a
painted.
huge mural. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's hand painted.
And they've got like a gold plated toilet,
Wow.
apparently. Who knows?
How long's a toilet seat going to last if it's gold plated though?
don't know.
That'd be ripped off in minutes. Like
That was like a viral
down the cash converters and like,
viral reel. And I think I'm sure like a lot of people are going to be going to Maryborough now to go and
like,
see it.
get your
Or
photo with
lining
the
up.
toilets.
So talking about social media, tell us how you became like this massive social media star, Jordana, because like we said before, you've got some reels that have had over 10 million views each, which is absolutely massive. So it'd be really interesting just to hear a bit more about how it all came about.
Well, it was, again, I never planned this. I've always wanted to work in media and production, but I worked in TV behind the scenes as a junior producer. I thought, I'm not going to get in front of the camera. I thought that was going to be my life, but I was like, I'm going to be a writer behind the scenes. But then, and my 12-year-old cousin showed me how to use TikTok because I didn't know how before this, which is very ironic. But it was in COVID and everyone was just so bored. And then I just started creating TikToks. And just if for anyone who thinks that you can't do social media, my first TikTok was in landscape. I didn't understand how it worked. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so I just started filming comedy sketches because I have so much of this creativity in my brain. It was great that in a couple of minutes you can make a video and edit it and things like that. So I just started creating videos, only a couple hundred views. I was like, oh, okay. And then the first video, things they should tell you before coming to Australia. And it was just like that the sun sets at 5 o'clock, that you can't buy wine in the supermarket in Queensland.
Yeah.
Things that just like baffle my mind. It's like, you get the chicken, I'll get the wine and salad. They're like, you can't. You have to go to the bottle-o. And I thought they were making this up. I was like, what's a bottle-o? Aussies will take every opportunity to lie to me as a joke. They love, I'm so gullible.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind. And then people disliked it. It's like, oh, it's got a couple of thousand, 20,000. I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And I just love making it. And then I just made a couple more. Then I was in, I think, online in the Daily Mail. And I think in 2 months, I grew 50,000 followers. And it was insane.
Wow.
But actually, that's been 2 years because I had to take breaks because it is a lot of effort, I think, to post every day and the highs and lows and working full time. But then at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm going to take this more seriously because I love creating this content. I love making people laugh. And so I started creating TikToks. And one of my tips is if you're going to be a content creator, just repurpose your work. So I took my TikToks, put them on as reels. And the first couple hundred views, couple thousand. And now nearly every time they'll get over 100, 150,000 views. And then a few of them, quite a few in the millions. And it blows my mind. Like they wouldn't have even reached that on TikTok, but on Instagram, they just go massive. And it has been such an amazing opportunity that I think back in 2020, I was like, someone's like, do you want to come to a spa as an influencer? I was like, I love spas. And then since then I've had all these opportunities and I was with you guys and I got to speak at this digital event and it's been amazing because I'm like, actually, I know so much now because I've had to learn it. No one's told me. I've had to make all these mistakes, but it has been incredible. And there's lots of highs and lows, but I love making people laugh. When I see comments like, that just made my day, because Aussies, it's not like complaining about the Australian life because I just have fun with it. Aussies are like, that's so true. Oh, I like that. We're going to keep that British girl. We like her. My accent's terrible, by the way, and I apologise. Every Aussie has.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was close. You're getting there. Yeah. Can you say, how you going, mate?
Oh, how you going, mate? No. Every time I try and get the accent, I try and think of what would someone say on a cooking show in Australia. I don't know, Deborah. If we don't cook well tonight, we're not going to get many points. And that's how I get the accent.
That's awesome.
I feel think she's going a bit more down the Kath and Kim.
Oh, yeah, you have to do MasterChef now, like a Kath and Kim MasterChef.
That would be great.
Like combine them.
Don't worry, Jordana, you should hear Steve trying to do a Welsh accent.
Do
You wanna
it.
Steve, quickly.
I'm from Wales. I like to be from Wales because that's where the kitchen is, from Wales. So that's kind of a bit it.
I
can do a Scottish one a little bit like from Scotland. I saw the golf balls up there. A bit like that sort of thing. I don't know. It's you just got to swallow a few golf balls and you're there. Like,
Each one is like a personality. You have to name them. This is the best.
I love
That makes
it
it feel so much better,
one.
Steve, about my accent.
So
Have a crack at it. It's
Are you
always
doing
good fun,
Cucumber.
Oh, yes. Would someone like some cucumber sandwiches? And so a little bit like,
What show is that from? Oh, Little Britain. Yes, I love it.
yeah.
But I love it when you do your Welsh one. I always think it sounds like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, yeah.
From Wales. But no, I mean, okay, so what's your favourite thing about Australia, Jordana? What's the number one thing you love about this country?
I'm going to be honest, it has to be the Aussies. It has to just be the Aussie, like, for example, Australia is like a state of mind, right?
Yeah.
Anyone can be Australian. I think it's like, there's so like this, I've only experienced really kindness in love. Like if you need help, they're like, if I've broken down, someone will help me. I went paddleboarding. Turns out you can be bad at it. And I had two separate strangers be like, are you okay? And then turns out a lifeguard team were training. I could hear them be like, watch the British one. You may need help.
Bondi Rescue, here we go.
And then the best thing about Aussies is that they have the ability to telepathically lie.
Oh, yeah. It's like the left-handed teacup. Right?
So it's like, no matter, even if these two Aussies don't like each other, they will agree on the same thing to trick the tourists. That's where Aussies get their energy from. And I think that's what makes just life so much better, because they're always willing to help. And it's the chilled out life. Like, again, it's that sunny thing every day. And my washing dries in 10 minutes. I love it. Outside.
Yes.
Isn't it? You don't need a dryer when you
You don't need a dryer because, I mean, how hard is it to dry your clothes in England? Like, or you're thinking, oh, geez, I've got to get a spot between the raindrops, like between the showers.
When we were in Venice a couple months ago, and they went on this sort of tour, like walking tour, and the guy there, he said, like, in winter, he'll have to put his clothes out on the like airing rack outside their building, like, from the windows. And he said that their clothes will be there for at least a week trying to dry.
A week?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Does that mean you have to wear like all your clothes twice, like during that? Because you would really, right? Realistically,
have more clothes.
I mean, like you're going to be wearing the same underwear a couple of times, right?
I don't know,
So, does that mean everyone in England kind of
You just buy enough underwear, Steve. Just everyone knows the British people just walk around just in the same pair of pants.
Oh, God.
Just checking, just had to confirm.
So, tell us about some of your most viral videos. Like, which are some of your favorites that you've produced so far?
Okay, well, the Kmart one always has a place in my heart because that's what really started it, and I love that. And there was so much love to it because the videos I create, what I love is that people around the world love it, but Aussies love it because they're like, oh, that's true. And it's not being mean to anyone. They're just like, we love Kmart, it's so true. And probably one of the most controversial to so many Aussies, people around the world, is when I did one about Australian milk. And you take a moment to be like, why is this difficult? But anyways, in the UK, milk, I'd never realized it before, but milk has a simple color-coded system. Blue is full fat, green is semi-skimmed, and red is skimmed. And I've never had to think about it. I just see the colors and done. And then my aunt asked me to get some milk from Woolies, and I nearly had a nosebleed because it's like blue could be full fat and skimmed, red, yellow, and pink can be light skim and trim. There's green, there's black, there's purple, and then doesn't even include any of the plant-based milks. And then there's gold for homogenized. I can't even say it. And I was like,
homogenized?
Just want milk. And then all the Aussies are like, have you just seen that advert? Just want milk. Tastes like real milk. But it just blew everyone's mind. It's like, why don't you read the label? And I was like, how dare you try and make me read?
It should be color-coded.
When you produced that video, I was like, I've been here 11 years and I only just realized it. And I was like, she's so right. I never even realized that before. Because when you do go, I don't generally drink milk anyway, but sometimes you might ask for it, Steve, and I'll go and find you someone. I'm like, oh God, which ones do you want? I'll just take a lucky dip. I'm like, oh, I'll just get that one. Maybe that will work. But like, I didn't actually realize it until you said it. And I was like, oh yeah.
Oh, because you go to Woolies and there's like a wall of milk and you're like, well, and you think, oh, okay, help me out here with some colour coding. And of course all the brands like try and confuse you and throw you off the scent. And there's like a blue and a slightly more pale blue and they're like completely different things. Like one's like, plant-based thing and then another one's, they're just trying to throw you off the scent.
Do you know what else confuses me that I realised recently? Now, Jordana, you'll be able to tell me if this is right or wrong because you just went back to the UK. But am I right or wrong to think that every single time, right, I pull up to the petrol station in Australia and we have an unleaded car and I'm like, I go to get the fuel and I'm like, I don't know which one do I take? Which one is it? Because you have E10, you've got unleaded, you've got premium unleaded. Is there another one? And I'm like,
well, yeah, there's a few different varieties. You've got your different levels of octane and stuff.
And you always say to me, like, don't get that one, but I never remember which one it
don't
is.
Get
and
the
I'm
ethanol.
like,
No.
I don't know. I just have to pretend and just pick whichever one it is to get.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Do you remember that when you went back recently? Was there that many different types of fuel to buy?
Was there choice?
Just unleaded and diesel, like from my memory. It's just simple. Yeah, over here I was like, what is E10? And they don't tell you, just like, don't you know? We're not telling you. It's E10. It's bamboozling. And also with the traffic lights, only when I went back, I was like, something's weird. And in the UK, it goes, obviously it's red, flashing amber, and then green. And over here, you're just like, Aussies are like, nah, cut the amber out, red, green. Got to go. And some traffic lights are so short, I have to feel like I'm always ready because people behind me are like, British girl, if you move slowly and we have to wait for the light again. So at least with the amber, the flashing amber, you're like, oh, I have time to get out of gear and da-da-da. In Australia, it's like, no, go.
And in Queensland, you can do a Yui, can't you, in the road? Like,
and Melbourne's completely different as well. Yeah.
That I find that really confusing between the states and the different traffic laws. And oh my gosh,
I think that's what's
it's like living in like so many countries, isn't it? So many countries all in one.
Yeah. It is. It's like in Melbourne, you have to go over to the far left before you turn around.
What?
So and you've got trams. Yeah. Go check it out. So if you have to go over to the far, if you want to turn right, you go into your left lane and then you turn right. Seriously, nothing.
More danger. That's more.
That is more danger.
What about people on the right lane? Where are they going?
Well, they turn left, so you could potentially have a big.
Can't.
Yeah. It's crazy. And then throw a tram into the mix. Throw a tram into that. But then in Queensland, like U-turns are normal. Like that's just a normal thing.
I didn't even notice that when I think about it. I'm like, because the worst time I went driving, I wasn't even driving, I was just a passenger in Melbourne. But just shows Melbourne people are different because we saw another car hit an elderly man. The elderly man just like, and walked off. It's like, just hit a car. But no one will stop in Melbourne. And just like, one gets hit, just carry on your day. We have places to be. And I was like, that's terrifying.
Oh,
that's another thing.
Fine. Yeah. Well, I'm not driving to Melbourne.
Well, let me just finish off here with the whole like the driving thing in Sydney. I just got to say, like it is seriously like it frets my nerves when I'm sitting there at the lights. Exactly as you say, when you're waiting for it to go green, and literally, if you're like 300 milliseconds slower than that light going green, there's a horn right, it's ready to go. Someone's got their hand on that horn, ready to give a little 1-2 to get going.
We have mentioned this before in another episode, Jordana, but I'm just briefing you here. Steve turns into a whole other person when he's behind the wheel in the car.
Oh, no,
he gets a little bit crazy.
Oh, yeah,
crazy Steve.
A bit feisty, I do. And he's got some very good techniques that we've talked about in another episode about getting your hand out the window and
hand
all
wave.
sorts.
Yeah, the hand wave.
It's very, very sneaky. Yeah.
No.
The hand wave, Jordana. Wind down the window, put your hand out, and that's how you like pull out onto a junction when people won't let you in.
Yeah, because they can't ignore the hand.
In Queensland, they're pretty good at it, I'd say, in general, and letting you in.
Because I didn't realise the other. Oh, so you carry on.
No, that's pretty much.
I didn't realise in the UK, if you want to let someone out, you just flash your lights, like, oh, you go first. But in Australia, they're like, that's to let when the pigs are nearby, and it's like wrong to do it. So like if because obviously in the UK you have to give right of way. That's because our road's so small. I'd be like, oh, like flashlights, you go. In Australia, they're like, police are here. Flash. I didn't know there's some secret code.
And that's something else we should talk about to prepare people before coming to Australia if they are driving is RBTs.
Oh, yeah.
Because
That's a big
you're
thing.
not really going to see an RBT, are you?
What's an
in the
RBT?
UK? I doubt it. What do you mean, what's an RBT?
Oh, RBT.
Oh my God, Jordana.
Hang on. Oh, we could make it up. Wait. Hang on. Don't waste this opportunity. You get to choose. Is RBT one of these three things?
Really bad
Are you ready?
traffic.
Is RBT A, really bad traffic? Is it B, right about tomorrow?
Down.
Well, without the A, or is it random breath testing?
Okay. Well, I feel like it's the middle one. No. Okay. No, I feel like the last one, because it did happen to me the other day and I completely panicked. I didn't realize it was called that. But for the first time in my life, I was pulled over. Like the police doing random checks and the police go, stop. So I just stopped the car in the middle of the road. She's like, to the side. So I just pulled over and she goes, no, to the side and forward. I was like, I was like hyperventilating. And then, so I rolled down my window. I didn't even stop the car. It was still juttering on because I just forgot how to drive. And then she goes, I want you to blow into this. And if you win, you get a prize. I was like, oh, I love prizes. And the prize was going to jail. And I was like, oh. And I passed. You know, in that moment, and it's completely panicked. And it's so strict over here in comparison to the UK. I feel like any kind of law, fine, they will inflict it. RBT, I've learned that now.
Now you know
it could be really bad tram drivers.
Yeah.
That's another one.
That's a good one. Oh, you're a bit late to
I was a bit late to the show. I know.
Really burnt turkey.
Really burnt toast. Really burnt turkey.
I remember. Do you remember the first time I got an RBT? And they were like, oh, because you got to breathe out, haven't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You got to breathe out.
You don't
But
breathe in.
I was breathing in, and they were going, "You're not doing it," and I was like, "Oh, I'm breathing in." Like, no, you got to breathe out. And I'm like, "All right."
It's breath testing, not like suck air in testing.
I don't
I
know.
didn't know what I was doing.
Actually, no, if you've never done it before.
I'd never done it before. Never.
I think they enjoy it as well. They like to watch you panic. So you're just like,
They do.
have I done anything wrong? I don't know.
I love how you're kind of shaking as you go, officer. I was just driving, and you're kind of like, taking the thing like this.
If anyone's watching this on video, then
Yeah, might not see that, but that's that feeling. You feel like you've done something wrong, even though you haven't.
Yeah.
It's a super weird thing.
very weird.
Yeah.
I think it's the accent as well. I was like, it's time for a breathalyzer test. And she's like, I'm so sorry.
And sorry. So, have you got any more tips that you want to tell people before moving to Australia, Jordana?
Okay. I think I have a list as well. But I was going to say on the driving, being barefoot is completely normal. It's completely.
Oh no.
Yeah,
You've got to
What's wrong with
embrace it. Embrace it.
No way, man.
totally.
I'm not doing that. Sorry. You've done it, and it freaks me out. I'm like, nah,
Why?
I just can't. The only time I'll go barefoot is at the beach. I can't walk around the shops barefoot. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I don't know why.
It's like liberation for your feet when you're driving. Yeah.
No,
Do you think?
I understand where you're coming from because as a British person, I'm like, never. How dare you even insinuate I go barefoot? But I think I was at the beach and I went from my Converse to my flip-flops, and then I think I just had to rush into the car, and I realized I had my flip-flops on. Just like, that's so dangerous. I threw them off and I was like, I have to drive barefoot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to crash, because the thought was awful. But then now I'm barefoot all the time. I grip the pedals with my like gorilla toes, and I love it. It's like hours, and my feet have never been healthier. But I posted a video on it, and then someone's like, you're going to get lots of feet comments now. I was like, oh no, what have I done?
You're going to get the feet fetishes.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
It was very bizarre, but that's another one that went viral because Aussies are like, yeah, I love it. Yeah, anytime. And I'm not saying in cities, but on like the Sunshine Coast where it's just like, I can't even remember the last time I wore shoes.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to embrace it. You're inspiring me. I need to do it.
And is it thongs or flip flops?
It's flip-flops for life. You won't be getting
Oh,
anything.
hang on. Hang on.
I'm going to draw a line in the sand, right? In the barefoot sand. No, just flip-flops is just a funnier, better word when you think of it. And
But I mean, it's why? But I mean, thongs it just sounds better. It's got the O where the plugger goes and everything. Like it's It's how it is.
See, now it just makes it worse when you say pluggers. It's gone from bad to worse. So look, I've even gone around and I've even called crisp chips. I'm embracing Australia.
Not the hot chip debacle.
One, that doesn't even make sense. Hot, like they're like, do you want chips? I'm like, I love chips, and hand me a packet of crisps. I'm like, I thought you meant chips. He went, no, I mean hot chips. I'm like, well, obviously they need to be hot. Just
why don't they just call them fries?
Well, because no, that's way too American. The whole chip thing is really simple. It's simple. You just call them chips and you're done with it. There's no crisps
and chips.
at the end of it.
They're crispy. See, we could just fight now. But
oh my god,
it's
you don't want to get Steve on the whole crisp debate. He will go.
Oh, hang on. Favorite chips, Jordana? What are they?
What, chips or hot chips?
Oh no.
Oh,
favorite
crisps. Okay. Well, just side note: chicken salt is life, right? But
chicken
salt and vinegar chips. Yes, crisps.
Salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar.
Cocktail for me.
Oh, can you tell us which brand? Is it going to be any brand?
But to be honest, like I just get bamboozled because in the UK, I just see the colour of the crisps and I pick it up. But over here, I'm just like, pink. Now look for pink.
Yeah, that's right. That's another really like confusing thing, isn't it?
Well, salt and vinegar's blue in the UK.
Yeah. It's green.
Yeah. Is it green?
It's an onion blue.
Oh, because chicken is green. Chicken is green here.
Oh my god, it's been too long.
Messing with this colour coding thing again. What are they doing that for? It's just a whole cruel joke.
We've just come out of your next video there, Jordana. Yeah. Thank you.
Ozzy's like, this is just ridiculous. Okay, if I had to think of more tips, I think probably the biggest one that people non-Australians worry about is I have so many non-Australian friends. It's like, I'd love to come to Australia, but I'm terrified of snakes and spiders. I think people think that as soon as you get to Australia, they're going to step out the airport and a King Kong-sized spider is going to be there. I mean, that's not true. That only happens on public holidays. But like, I've been here 3 years and I am terrified of spiders, but I don't see them. I see them in my dad's shed in dark, dank places, right? But you just don't see them. I've seen 2 snakes and that was late at night and that was on the road when it was really hot and they needed to cool down. Don't be afraid about seeing snakes and spiders in Australia. You should be afraid of birds. To anyone listening.
Oh my God! Yes.
Totally.
Tell us, please let us in. What's the what advice?
So when I first came here, and in all honesty, so I saw this cyclist wearing a helmet with these zip ties coming out of it, like it was like a crown, and I was like, that Australian has not put on sun cream. He's been in the sun too long. It's gone a bit mad. And I saw more and more people do it, and I was like, what is happening? And I Googled it, and so in Australia, was known as magpie swooping season, and magpies will, if they're nesting, they will swoop you as you walk by, and they will draw blood, and it is scary. And there are actually signs around warning people it's magpie mating season. They will swoop you. Walk nicely, and like for example, so people, so that's why they have the helmet with spikes on, so the birds deter birds from attacking. And it's true because not only that, if you upset a magpie, it will remember your face and it will follow you for the rest of your days.
No. I always wondered that too, because I used to cycle to work all the time in Sydney.
Yeah.
I was like, why has everyone got these like cable ties hanging out their helmets for? I didn't understand that. I was like, I don't understand what this is all about.
Well, long before the cable tie thing was a big thing, I have vivid memories being up in Newcastle or down in Newcastle with families at my nan's house. I would have been about 12, and like literally I remember my mates were watching from a distance, and I was on my bike and I was riding along next to the park, and I was literally swooped continuously by about 3 or 4 magpies while I was riding along. And that actually drew blood. It was that bad. Oh, yeah. And it was like shoot, 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 shoot. And I was like, whoa. And that was just, it was heavy duty. Anyway, I'm getting quite into this.
Have you experienced any magpie swooping at all, Jordana?
A little bit of swooping, but nothing that drew blood. Like I saw a magpie get hit by a car and it was still alive. So I went to go and get it, but its family swooped on me. So I got in the car and I just cried because I just couldn't. But then I've actually made a friend with a magpie outside my house. I've called him Magnus and I feed him seeds. And like there's a list of things on a website you can feed them, but he just comes to hang out and it will hop in the house. So apparently if you befriend the magpie, it will protect your house. So it's like so much to it. Like, I don't know if you, Steve, just growing up being like, yes, danger's everywhere. It's just normal for you. And then a British person comes over like, what is happening?
Well, it was like, I mean, when Annie first came over, she was like literally freaking out walking through the bush. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's thinking like a spider's going to pop out and all of a sudden it was going to like eat her or something. And there's this kind of feeling that anywhere that we went that I'd have to be protecting Annie from these evil snakes who were going to like eat her legs off. And it was never going to happen. It was okay. It was fine. And then after a while, she became one with the wild animals. They're realizing they're not out to all get you. And the whole thing is a little bit, kind of a bit more overblown and everything's okay. So
well, now I have a little fear, like because we used to go to loads of wild swimming spots around, especially around Sydney. Yeah. And now when we go to them, if there's no one swimming in there, I'm a bit like, is a snake going to pop out? Yes. Snakes can swim. And I'm like, oh.
Well, Annie's tactics she told me at the beach is that she won't go out further than her waist because her theory is she'll be able to run faster than the shark to get in.
That makes a lot of sense.
No, I've got to be able to put my feet on the floor. And also going out on a cloudy day. Do you ever get that, Jordana? Like if it's a cloudy day, I always have this fear that there's going to be more sharks in the ocean. And I'm like,
why do you have this fear? And now I have this fear because you don't.
Oh, sorry.
Explain this fear.
Hopefully the listeners don't have that fear. I don't know why. I just get this real fear that there's going to be loads of sharks, like just lurking around.
I like that you think that sharks are sitting there in the ocean checking their weather app, like, oh, cloudy, beach. Yeah.
Obviously. That's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing.
Then, to be fair, just because we've terrified everyone with birds, what is on the polar opposite side of that is that you get bush turkeys, which are like a cross between a turkey and a chicken, which are just so stupid but adorable. Weird, they just walk around, it's like doing nothing. And it's just hilarious that I try to describe to my family in England. I'm like, just imagine there's chickens everywhere. And they just roam free and they're protected and they have no purpose but just to the garden, like just to pick up leaves.
It's the garden.
It's kind of like they're like the equivalent to the foxes in London. You see loads of foxes wandering around,
and they're harmless.
No purpose.
They just do nothing.
Although keep the council workers busy because they've got to scrape all the stuff back into the garden bed again.
Yeah,
so
they cause a mess. They cause an absolute mess.
Maybe it's a council worker thing. Maybe they've sent the turkeys out to make a big mess so they can come and clean it up.
I don't know. What about the bin chickens?
They're terrifying.
Bin chickens.
They look like if you Google bin chicken, it looks like a dinosaur. They freak me out.
Big beaks. I didn't even realise that's what they were called. It took me quite a few years to even understand that. But I used to see them around in Sydney and I'd be like, what is that bird?
What is that?
I feel like it's going to attack me or something. But talking on that as well, another thing, I don't think it was that long ago that I even asked you if it was real or not. And bear in mind, I'm not talking about these birds, but I'm talking about something else. But there's something else that I'm sure I asked you not that long ago, which is quite embarrassing here considering I've been in Australia for 11 years. And I asked you if it was real or not. And that, my friends, is the topic of drop bears.
No.
I did.
Drop bears are real. For anyone listening, they are real.
Can you give us a lowdown, Jordana? What's the story about drop bears?
Well, see, drop bears, they look like curly koalas, but they're not. They're actually vicious. They can smell meat, so you should never walk in a densely forested area with beef jerky or anything in your pocket. They can smell it. And if you need to repel a drop bear, it's a little bit of Vegemite behind the ears and you're good to go. You're golden.
Have you seen, there's a video that came out a while ago and I think it was like a news story or something. Yeah. And anyway, there was this British woman and she was interviewing these couple guys. I think they were in Tassie and they told her this whole story about drop bears and, how they were like really rare but really dangerous and everything. And they brought a koala out for her and they were like, you have to hold this drop bear. And they were like, you got to be really, really careful. And she was absolutely bricking it. She was just like, oh my God. And she was like trying to stay really composed for the story. And she was just like, I'm holding this drop bear. and like you said, they were so good at keeping such a straight face. Yeah. And they didn't let on at all the entire time until afterwards. And they were like, oh, we're having your leg. And she was like, what? Like, how did you do that to me for so long?
But that's what fuels Australians. It just that gives them the energy. It's like caffeine.
It's that little bit of pleasure.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of moment of just like, that was fun.
So let's just talk about a few of the foods that people should probably
Yes. Become acquainted.
prepare them for before they come to Australia. So what kind of foods do you reckon, Jordana, people should look out for when they come over?
Okay, immediately, just to preface that, whatever food you try, just know there's like 5 different nicknames for it. So you'll never understand it. Just visually understand what it looks like. But if you come from the UK and you like a Greggs, the equivalent over here is like a meat pie. And Aussies love it. Wherever, I think, when an Aussie decides where to buy a house, they're like, is it near work? Is it near a good school? Is it by a pie shop? And it's very important to the Aussie way of life to have pies. Fairy bread is another favourite. Even if Aussies don't eat it, they need to know how it's made, and it's a firm favourite.
I've never ever had fairy bread.
Oh, you're not missing out. You're not missing out. Like,
never had it. What is it exactly?
do you imagine sugar and like you paint each grain like a different colour and you put it all together? That's kind of what you got with fairy bread. But that is kind of the thing you have as a child. And if you want to give get a child really hyper, feed them some fairy bread and you're in business.
Exactly. And I think my favourite thing is people like, if you go to the hardware store, it's very normal to get a snag.
Yes.
Bizarre concept. People are like, what? Basically, it's sausage and a piece of bread, not a bun. It has to be a piece of bread. And apparently the sausage is called the snag and not the bread, but that's the combo. And it's just like, oh yeah, go to Bunnings, get a snag. What a Saturday. Just
That's a classic Aussie Saturday, isn't it?
I'm always impressed. Or like all the workers at Bunnings just know where everything is. I wonder if they do that in their home.
God,
like,
it's incredible.
like you go, looking for some screws. They get 5, about 3/4 down. I'm like, what? How did you do that? I can't even find stuff in my underneath my sink. Like,
they have more training than
that
people
work?
in MI5, I swear, in Bunnings. They're just like, they know everything, the tiniest screws, and it's massive. But yeah, Bunnings is a great place to be. When I was in the UK, I was like, where's Bunnings? People are like, what? I'm like, B&Q. Yeah.
I'm thinking that B&Q. But it's like, I wish that they would train taxi drivers as much as that they train Bunnings stuff, you know, that taxi drivers actually understand where, you know, certain roads are in cities would be kind of favourable, really.
But Jordana, I have to ask, what's your feeling about meat raffles?
Oh my God, I don't feel like I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's awesome.
Do you not know what a
Okay,
meat
this is
raffle
great.
is?
No, because I was going to ask, because you guys lived in New South Wales, Sydney, right? So it's different from Queensland. And I'm going to ask you about chicken parmigiana, what you call that. What's meat raffles?
Okay. Which one should we start with?
Meat raffle.
Meat raffle? Do you want to do meat raffle?
So hang on. They do meat raffles in Queensland, don't they?
Yeah.
Don't they?
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay. Jordana's obviously not going to.
But they're not as popular.
establishments.
Okay.
When I first came to Australia and Steve took me to his local pub, and they're like on the mic, hello everybody. Tonight's meat raffle.
And it's like, what? What's this meat raffle thing all about?
What?
Yeah.
This makes less sense.
Okay. We have to do a 1 of 3 again. Let's do a 1 of 3. Okay. Is a meat raffle a chance to go and meet somebody? Okay. Is a meat raffle like
dating?
Is it like a place where you go to meet somebody and then you might have a raffle like a I don't know. I can't think of number 2. All right, we'll go straight to number 3. Is meat raffle a tray of meat with sausages and steaks and all that sort of stuff that you kind of win at an RSL or a pub or a surf club?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. If it is number 3, it's the most Australian thing I've ever heard. Like, are you gonna go? Do you want a plate of meat? Yeah, I want a plate of meat tonight. Because in Australia, like vegetarians still eat chicken. I've never heard of such a crazy. One, I think it's crazy. It's so normal. So people just like to win plates of meat. Is that it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Totally.
It's so weird.
But get this right. It's all about the barbecue because you take the meat to the barbecue,
Yes.
not a Tesco's barbecue, not a little like disposable.
Yes.
You go to a proper barbecue and you have a proper big like feast of meat. That's
But
what
they
it is.
get you win like a lot. It's not just like, oh, here's a couple of steaks we bought from Coles that you could win. It's like a whole massive tray.
Oh my gosh,
full
have
of,
you ever
like-
won?
No, I never entered one. I thought it was just too weird. I was
Never
like,
won.
I'm not going to walk down the street with a big tray of meat and be like, hey, I won every.
That is so Aussie. And that's one thing Australia loves. It's barbecue every night. Meat. Meat.
Be like, better get down the RSL and do it.
Totally.
Okay, but what do you guys think? This is really important. Like, I didn't realize that
yeah.
chicken parmigiana is such a heated debate in Australia, and the name changes per state. So, what do you guys nickname the chicken parmigiana? Is it Parmy or Parma? Oh,
See? What's yours?
It's always been a palmy for me. It's never been a Parma. That's
Palmy.
definitely a palmy. It's
Palmy.
like it's like everything with an E, like fireys.
Palmy.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
What do you
the
reckon?
E's.
What's yours, Jordana?
I think, well, Parmy, because Parma is chicken parmigiana, but then I think it's Parmy. Because, like, Parmy? I was going to, it's not Parma.
Yeah.
Parma. I think Parmy sounds better, but I don't want to be hunted down afterwards. So I'm just going to go like, I always call it chicken parmigiana because I never like to get in the middle.
Oh.
You're going Switzerland on that
Yeah.
one. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, right. I feel ya.
It's like you don't realize you've walked into a fight until you're like, oh no, people are upset. People are mad. Like,
It's very serious.
yes.
What about pavlovas then?
I was just thinking, Pavs.
Hang on, pavlovas. That's an English thing there as well, isn't it?
When Aussies love something, they claim it as their own. Apparently, they invented pavlova and lamingtons, and I don't know if they did, but Aussies are claiming it because they like it.
But have you ever tried a pavlunda?
Oh gosh, what?
Pavlunda?
What you want
A pavlunda?
Are you making this up?
No, seriously. What they do is they flip the pavlova upside down. It's called a pavlunda.
I'm
Oh, you did make that up.
I'm calling it. No, calling it. See how happy he is when he thinks he's got us. Brings him joy.
It's joy. It's joy right there.
Have you guys done a Tim Tam Slam?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. I love Tim Tams. And you know, when I first came over here and everyone was like raving, oh, Tim Tams, you got to get onto them. Had them, I was like, these are like penguins.
They are.
Remember like penguins in England? But I think Tim Tams
They are better, I think. Penguins have the odd jokes, but they taste okay. But Tim Tams are actually pretty nice. So
Do you want to explain what a Tim Tam Slam is?
Oh, yeah.
Jordana?
Can run us
it's
through.
actually in Australia technically a sport. So it's taken very seriously. But the idea is to get a hot drink. You get a Tim Tam and you bite, what is it? The opposite corner, the top and the bottom opposite corner. And then you use it like a straw to drink your drink. And then you have to slam the Tim Tam into your mouth. Very, very ladylike. And just eat the biscuit. Do not put the Tim Tam down because it's sucked through the hot water, like I found out, it will melt like a puddle. But I don't know why, but it's the way it's done. Someone decided that you can't eat a Tim Tam slowly. It just must be slammed into your mouth. With a function.
And so is there anything that you have learned recently, not from this podcast, that you're like, I need to gain a better understanding of this Australian way of life that I've not experienced yet?
I think probably traveling more of Australia. What I didn't realize was when I came here is that, and what I'm still discovering is that even though Australia is one country, like one prime minister, each state has its own like premier, but each state is actually so different when it comes to lingo, sports. Like the southern states all love AFL. The northern states might be like rugby, more like league. So different lingo. Like for example, you can't go from Victoria to Adelaide with a piece of fruit to South Australia. It's like a crime.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like you can't travel from Victoria into South Australia with fruit because of the ecosystem. And so you will get fined like hundreds of dollars.
No.
Yeah. And then
Yeah. True story.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
That's
And
really
and there's signs
weird.
everywhere. And I had an apple and I absolutely panicked. My friend was like, you're going to go to jail. And she was messing about, but I threw it in the bin. But I like was sweating because in Australia, you will go to jail. Like in Queensland, you can't own a rabbit.
What?
You can't own a rabbit.
I did not know that.
No way.
Really?
It's illegal.
No.
Wow.
I know a lot of
Oh
people
my-
said they own some long-eared guinea pigs, but it's for the ecosystem. But I don't know at what point we're in New South Wales as a rabbit. You're just like, oh, I can't go into Queensland. Oh.
No way. I didn't know
Yeah.
that one. Oh my God. Do you know any others? That's amazing.
Oh yeah, you can let us in.
There's so many. Like, I think Victoria is probably the strictest state. Like, they have a list of banned baby names. You can't name your children.
Bad baby
stop.
names.
Oh,
No,
I think I remember
really?
seeing this on
Yeah,
your,
like you
on
can't
your
name your
Reels
child
before.
any type of title. Like, you can't name your child Captain, Queenie, Princess, Prince, Admiral. I like a baby Admiral. That'd be great. Like, it's actually illegal. And when I did this research, I found out that some people had successfully named their child Number 16 Bus Stop. Like,
No
and in New
way.
Zealand, like fish and chips, and Tallulah does the hula from Hawaii. But Victoria does have like a huge, like, for example, they've had
that's
to
so
add to this list of names because people have tried to name their child Smelly Head and like Poop and all these things, like geez, like not geez, like just like, yeah, so Queenie, I think Admiral, like, and even like swear words. And Victoria's been like, right,
Oh,
you have to make it a law that you can't actually name your children this. It's
Wow.
But what about the other states? Can you name them Poop and
Yeah, could you
Queenie
go
and-
across the border and
so, like,
go
for
up to-
example, like, you can't name your child Anzac and Victoria, but you can in the rest of Australia, because lots of Australians are like, oh, I know a cousin Anzac, but you just can't in Victoria.
Wow. But
I
what
did
if
not know that.
what if you moved to Victoria with that name?
Yeah. Do they let
And they're
you in?
like, you're out.
Stop you at the
Sorry.
border. Sorry, Anzac, can't come in.
Can't do it. I think it's fine, but it's like there's lots of old laws, like you can't wear pink pants on a Sunday or something ridiculous, or you can't change a light bulb. It has to be an electrician. Like these
Oh
weird
my
laws.
Oh yeah.
And like still in Australia, like you can't have in your car more than 50 kilos of potatoes. It's still a law.
What? No, is it really?
There was like a famine, and they didn't want people to have too many potatoes, so you can't have 50 grams of more than potatoes in your car, 50 kilos. So these things are still in remission. And I found out in Western Australia, the first police force were just made of the nicest criminals. They found that they needed more police, so they just basically got the nicest behaved criminals, and that was Western Australia's first police force. Yeah. So not only that, in Australia, I mean, Australians like to simplify everything, like service station, servo, like, bottle shop, bottle-o, but they make everything more complicated as well, because you can't just order, like in the UK, be like, oh, want a pint, want a half pint. But in Australia, do you want a schooner or a midi or a pot? Do you want a pony? Do you want like
a
Pony. What's that?
A pony's like a little. I'd say it's a Victorian thing. A pony.
It's
like a little
it
one.
changes each
Yeah.
state.
Hang on.
Yeah.
How small is it then?
Well, it's smaller. Like
Is it like a shot?
somewhere. I think it's somewhere
I'll have a shot of
between.
beer, please.
Yeah, it's like somewhere between I think a schooner and a midi. Like somewhere. The exact mills. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Maybe
God.
Jordana has an idea.
I actually tried to research it, and I couldn't. It broke my brain because I made a graph because like it is all about the measurements, and I think a schooner is a half. But then, like for example, the midi, pots, pints, and ponies are all slightly different.
Oh,
And I'm just like,
so confusing.
that's why I'll just wine, please. A schooner of wine.
Oh, very confusing. And then you got to think about wine as well, like wine and goon bags. Like I'd never seen that before when I first came over here. I was like,
have you played
what?
Have you played the Goon of Fortune game?
Oh gosh.
You heard about
no.
them, Jordana. Go on, Steve.
So you get a goon bag and you put it on the edge, like on the outside of one of those Hills Hoist clotheslines, and then you spin it. And then whoever it stops on has to scull.
Right. That's the most Australian thing I can think of. Just sure.
Goon of Fortune.
Love it. Not only that, Australia has some of the most beautiful wine regions, and then you got someone being like, grab that bag and let's then
Very inventive.
Let's spin it and down it.
yeah. Oh,
Like, we don't need to go to some fancy winery and buy like expensive wines.
no.
Although wine is quite cheap over here, though, isn't it? You can get some quite cheap bottles.
You can. There are some tasty ones. In fact, we have amazing wine regions. So you don't have to stop at the goon bag. There's always more options
I
out.
think they kick you out. They kick you out the wine. But like, Annie, what kind of like words have you adopted into your lingo? Because just then, like goon bag, skull, things that snuck into your vocabulary.
I was saying in another episode how sometimes you might get this as well, Jordana. Like I get really confused by different names of things. So like when it comes to shopping at the supermarket, like I was saying like how courgettes, and I'm like, what is the word for courgettes or aubergines and eggplants? And I'm like, oh, which one is it? So sometimes I have to like properly think about it before working it out. But what I definitely do is I do the O thing where I'm like Steve O, and then his mum's called Jean, and then I adopted the word Gino, and now her whole family
The whole family
Gino.
calls her Gino after
Even
her.
she calls herself Gino.
Even she
now.
calls herself Gino.
I love it's beautiful. And I think Aussies are like, go on then, yeah, let's make fun of it, let's do it.
What words have you adopted?
I feel like no worries, like no worries.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like I just text like, no worries. It's like what does that mean? I'm like, just no worries. And cruisy sometimes sneaks in. And I think it's like my sister, I was like, I'm going to take you to Fisherman Roads Market on the Sunshine Coast. She goes, oh, where's that? I was like, Fisherman Roads Market. And she goes, yeah, well, where is that? I was like, it's by the river. She goes, where's the river? Just down the road. Where is it? I'm like, it's not far. And I didn't realize like that's the most Australian conversation where I've given you information that means nothing.
There's a whole bunch of like Australianisms out there. I mean, but one thing I'm curious to know, and this is super important, it's been on my mind for a while, Jordana. Are you a meat pie or a chicken pie person?
Well, it's got to be meat. I like how you said meat or chicken. Like chicken is salad to Australians. It's like vegans eat chicken because it's like, doesn't count. It's like my big fat Greek wedding. You vegetarian? I make lamb. It's meat. I think because then I feel like, I'm going to get some good iron. But it just tastes better. Yeah. And what's weird is I walk around just with this, like even how to eat a meat pie in Australia is like this contested, like some people like take the lid off and then you eat it and then you eat the lid. Or you put the Tommy sauce or the dead horse or the red sauce, whatever. And then it's like I get told off whatever way I do it. It's not right.
Oh, really? No. For me, like it's all about eating like the top, like first.
You don't eat it with cutlery, do you?
No.
Like,
oh, no, we'd never eat a pie with cutlery. Yeah.
It's the same with fish and chips. Fish and chips, he will not use cutlery for fish and chips.
Definitely not.
Yeah. But I get it with chips, but like with the fish. You're still like, I'm breaking it all up and it's really hot and eating it with my hands.
I feel like the fish should be offended if I got out the cutlery.
Got to eat it with dignity.
Eat it with dignity.
Yeah. One of the other things that I would really recommend to everyone is that when they say, I'm going to travel Australia, it's like saying you're going to travel Europe. It is massive. And Europe is actually smaller, like fits into Australia. And like I said, what's amazing is that every state is slightly different. And gosh, Australia is so beautiful. The beaches are just phenomenal. To any Australian out there, if you think you're going to get the same level when you go to the UK, lower your standards. Wales, I think, is some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, just not the weather. But our beaches are more pebbly and seaweedy and brown. But in Australia, the beaches are beautiful. But I feel like when a lot of people come over here, they underestimate how big everything is. And it's not exactly cheap to travel. So we don't really have the greatest train system. You have to fly, and that is expensive. Like we're in Queensland now, but it is quicker to fly to Melbourne than it is to the top of Queensland. And that takes you a couple of hours. So I'd really recommend, of course, see like the Sydney Opera House and things like that. But that is not what true Australia is. You should travel the smaller towns. And even like I went to Girraween, which is like 4 hours south, some wine regions there, and some beautiful just random rock formations. Like Western Australia has beautiful things. Queensland has all these islands, beautiful beaches. And I just really recommend that if you're going to plan a visit to Australia, just know that you might only do one state because there's so much to do. And just think, what would you like to do? And then plan around that because Australia is just massive.
Yeah.
Such a huge area. So many amazing things that you wouldn't think of. I mean, you've got all these different areas, everything from the subtropical rainforests through to like desert regions and caves. And then when you go south, you've got like lots of, sort of snowfields and all these amazing sort of beach areas that you wouldn't really think of, and totally amazing landscape that's just completely different to what you'd normally kind of expect out of a more compact island like England's a bit more flat. And but there's so much you can really get away from things, I think, in Australia.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think if you're moving to Australia, whether you're going to come over here as a backpacker or you're moving over here for work, then try and get out and see as much as you can. I think a lot of people, when they move over, they stay put in one place, especially if they're moving to Sydney. A lot of people they instantly gravitate towards Manly or Bondi, and they don't really venture that much further away from those areas. But there is so much more to see in this country. It is unbelievable and absolutely beautiful. So if you do want to travel around, then check out our site, londandandsydney.com, because we've got heaps. There you go. There's a word for you there, Jordana. Heaps. That's one word I've definitely picked up. We've got heaps of content on there and lots of travel guides to help you plan your trips away. So, Jordana, thank you so much for coming on and being our very first guest of our podcast.
Thank you, Jordana. Yay. It was so amazing. We really appreciate that so much. Thank you. Yes.
So you can find all of Jordana's tips on our site called londandandsydney.com under things they should tell you before coming to Australia. There's loads of really, really funny little tips she's got in there for you to read about. And if you're not following Jordana already, which I'd be very, very surprised if you're not, you can catch her on all of her social media channels at the Jordana Grace. Make sure you follow her on TikTok and Instagram. You will get hooked on her content. It's very, very funny.
Very funny. I'm already addicted already. I can't wait to hear all of Jordana's tips. Okay, so go and check out Jordana's content. We know you're going to love her as much as we do, so get out there and enjoy. And we shall see you next time. And be safe and be well.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Jordana.
Bye.
Thanks, Jordana.